IVM.
This is Audio Gyan, and I am your host Kedar Nimkar. Welcome to a deep dive into the minds of luminaries from the Indian creative world. Billy Campbell once said, "I'm not a big fan of CGI. I'm not a fan at all, unless they use it in a way that doesn't call attention to itself." I think on similar lines, even design, there's a line which says, "Great design is invisible design." Well, our today's guests have been crafting stunning visuals which organically blend into the narrative, making it feel almost real. Today we have Yashoda Parthasarthy and Vijesh Rajan with us on AudioGyan. Vijesh and Yashoda both are director, animator, and motion designers. They are the team Plexus. Plexus have worked on projects like making title sequences, music videos, trailers, and animated movies. Few names to their credit are Gangs of Wasseypur, Angry Indian Goddesses, Double Barrel, Raman Raghav, Made in Heaven, Sacred Games, and more. Today we are going to document some bits of CGI and VFX and what it takes to make really real in motion design. So welcome Vijesh and Yashoda to AudioGyan. It's a real pleasure to have you guys.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Hi, Kedar.
Yeah, hi. So this sort of AudioGyan is mainly to understand and pick your brains around how are you making these stunning visuals and what is VFX and what is motion design. So we'll start off with like a layman definition. If you guys can tell what is VFX, what is special effects, are these sort of categorically different things, or are there any more keywords in this? How loosely or interchangeably we use these terms? If you can start with that, maybe. Yeah, Vijesh, you want to go first?
Yeah. So special effects actually is a term that has been, it's actually dated. It's been there for a very long time, and it's something that people have been using more in the practical sense on set. Like for example, Alien, those movies, they actually had practical effects on set. They would have slime oozing out. They would have like large puppets, and they would have animatronics and stuff like that. Yeah, special effects is kind of a dated term now and on set, but it is used for these kind of things only. Like, for example, if we have an action team coming in and they have like squibs put in for like bullets and stuff like that, that's all called special effects. Like, whatever happens on set and in camera is special effects.
Oh, okay.
And visual effects is more what happens after in post production. Like, when you add things later, that's become more like an industry common terminology now, but like a lot of people mix and match it, and like a lot of people have no idea also, so they like they go for they say SFX, and then that suddenly becomes interpreted as sound effects also, so it's like very loosely used. But yeah, that's the general idea. We feel like special effects is now more like an on-set in-camera thing.
Are there any other things when you speak about purely motion or animated videos? Is there any other terminology or any other sort of practice that is involved in it?
So basically, the old school term was motion graphics for the longest time because illustrations were animated but not like cell animated, or they were not the traditional 2D animation in terms of like characters being animated. So they were called motion graphics for the longest time. But in the recent past, along with uh, motion graphics, there's a lot of design that goes into how you show the animation, how you depict something that is abstract or that is narrative based, but it's just visually well designed. So then this new term of motion design has emerged in the market because design is as much an integral part of that style of animation, which is not essentially like your Disney, old school Disney movies where, cell animation of characters used to happen, but it's used for stuff like packaging, for motion branding, for animated shots or clips where you want to say some story or tell your brand or like make a brand film, but it's also got like a narrative piece in there. So all of these sort of come, even our title sequences, all of that come into the motion design segment of visual effects and motion design is the new way of saying things. Like when you say motion design, it's clearly built from scratch out of nowhere, and visual effects is generally you shot something and then you add things to whatever you shot to enhance it. So that's how I would categorize both of them, like, or differentiate between the two.
Got it. Got it. Cool. Interesting.
And
And yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to add that basically design, branding, all of these terminologies already existed, but because of how technology has developed and how artists have become so multidisciplinary, it started evolving into motion design. So earlier, like let's say maybe just 15 years ago, 10 to 15 years ago, we would not have a lot of motion designers in the market, because it was you would have either a designer or an animator, but Adobe and like a lot of like software that is now so easily available for people to use, and even online classes, like you go to YouTube, you will find tutorials so easily. So people are that line started blurring, so it's no longer just a designer or an animator as separate things. People started combining the two, and so now it's like a very free flowing thing, and that's why motion branding happened, because earlier I used to work in advertising actually for a long time. So we used to do pitches for branding. Motion was never a part of it. Motion was an extension of it. It will come later in later stages after the print ads go on, as a reminder ki bhai ye bhi chal raha hai. But now it's a very integral part of it. In fact, it supersedes everything else.
Yeah.
It's more important than the print. So that's where we are as like in a society where visuals, motion, video is in the forefront.
I think you guys are still on the forefront of it when it comes to UI UX. I think a very close friend of mine who specializes in motion design, he was saying design which was like 10 years ago, today motion design is there, because even the PhonePe logo which comes in, it has within the brand guideline itself like a motion design section to it, that how it should come, when it should come in TV, on your like whatever payment confirmation pages, and a lot of detailing has been done. Yeah, interesting. So yeah, a bit philosophical. How do you define motion? Because I had done with Suresh Iriat, and I just said like, if nothing moves, has it got a life? And we went in a different tangent, but yeah, just to sort of understand, like how do you define motion or special effects? Special effects, so nahi, but yeah, motion design. I would say like what according to you is like good storytelling.
So, like, I would completely agree, and I would like to go back and re-listen to the conversation with you had with Suresh. But basically, I have a very similar perspective on like motion. For me, is like it could be any object, anything that is abstract. It could be a painting, it could be a brush stroke. But the minute you add motion to it, it just becomes magic. I have the one title sequence that I directed called I had this concept that like imagine, because it was about drug cartels and how they were functioning in Goa. So I had this whole like landscape of Goa was the brief. But then I was like, what more can we do? And the idea was that the faces of all the characters, and there were like 12 brilliant actors who were part of the show. All the faces of these characters, they explode in colorful smoke. That was just the concept. Now, without the smoke exploding, or if you just see the picture of a smoke or you see the picture of a face, it's nice, it's pretty. If the lighting is well, it's well shot, or you appreciate it. But adding both of them together and add a camera to it, and it's just magic. It's something else altogether. So for me, like if anything is in motion, then it's just magic. Motion is like magic, and storytelling ke liye motion is like a method to say different stories. You're not restricted to just talking about people and their lives. You can talk about a coin, traveling from or having a life or moving from one corner to another, and what are the challenges that coin is facing during that motion scene. You can do anything, and that just sees you as a creator and an artist. And I don't know, it just uh, brings out the inner child in you. It just gives you that freedom, right? So I think that's what motion is for me.
Yeah, beautiful. Vijesh, what's your understanding?
I agree. Like I feel like it's about bringing life to things that otherwise would look lifeless. Like Yashoda directed another sequence recently for a show called Decoupled, and the sequence entirely uses inanimate objects.
Yeah,
It's
Oh,
like, yeah, but it somehow like reveals the logo in a way that does something like basically the story is about a couple who are no longer together, and the objects that they own kind of also start separating. That's the whole idea, because
interesting.
eventually that's what happens in a divorce. You kind of like go your own way, you take your things as well. So
yeah,
like one toothbrush is suddenly like moving away from the other. It looks like a gust of wind might have pushed it, but in the context of finally zooming out and revealing that there's decoupled written on the logo, on the mirror, on the dew, basically in the, so that is there on the mirror. It kind of, it's telling a really nice story about this couple and where they're headed and like the small fights that they're having. So
yeah.
it kind of like there itself, it shows that, just small movements in inanimate objects can say such a larger story, right?
Hmm.
And that was a concept, like, when a couple separates, uh, the impact is seen in the little things that you don't otherwise, like the toothbrush and
Hmm.
yeah, like a list of 20 things, but like the suitcase, the toothbrush, and the ring,
Yeah.
seeing them separate is sort of like a hint of what's going on within the marriage.
Hmm.
And you can't do that with, if you're not open to letting rings and toothbrush do the talking or telling of the story.
Yeah.
I think it's
Hmm.
very empowering uh, to come up with concepts to do something that's really different.
Correct. And I'm just connecting multiple dots here. What used to happen is I did an episode with Aniruddha Joshi from IDC, and he said back then when the industrial revolution happened, a lot of the softer aspects or the जो कलाकारी थी वो थोड़ा कम हो गया इसलिए flat and that Bahas movement and everything became flat because of the extent to which machines could deliver something, right? तो उसी line पे अभी like this toothbrush or whatever is in design we have this word ना कि design is in the details. तो वो details दिखा के storytelling better होता है हमेशा कि just because of say time limit or rendering capacities or the technology purely not evolved, you play and dabble with these tiny things and build that storytelling, or is it no, actually, with Bahubali and bigger things, we are not really. But yeah, any thoughts there? कि छोटे चीजों में like when you show it's much more beautiful in storytelling.
And whenever I come up with concept for any of the title sequences that I've done, I never, I'm purely thinking what can I show that hasn't been uh, that talks about the show or the film well, but hasn't been explored fully in the film or the series or whatever I'm doing the title sequence. Then it comes to then once you pitch all your ideas, then of course your budgetary constraints and timelines and all of that come into play for sure. But it's never like okay, if I'm talking about a war movie, then I shouldn't show the war and show just the sword of the war. It's never like that. It never is like we don't arrive at it like that. For me, it's purely okay. This is what the filmmaker wants, and how can I? Because I'm sort of creating a small film inside somebody else's. So how can I? How can my film fit in well and enhance the film and create a mood or set up what the audience is about to watch? So
Hmm.
that's where I'm coming from. So it's mainly there, and then of course, like I mentioned, then we go to the producer, and then you're like, oh, those do मैंने में deliver करना. Then you go. alternatives and or say the same thing but in a probably less production heavy manner.
Oh, got it. Yeah, and actually, it was sort of. I also thought about the question, and it's mainly about how do you bring those metaphors into the story rather than being a small or a big one. The metaphor, if there's a good connect, I think that establishes the context. Yeah. Vijesh, I know like you spoke that you are not from a academic angle, but you have been in the industry for quite some time. And if you could just give us the state of affairs, right? Since Ram Mohan days, abhi hum kahan tak aaye hain? Any pattern that you have observed, purely from a practitioner standpoint?
Huh. I mean, I feel like what Ram Mohan was trying to do was eventually destroyed only. like, because like there is no real 2D animation industry right now. You know, what he was doing was exceptional work, and he was also recognized by Disney and everything. No? But after that, like apart from a few title sequences that he did for films, like he didn't have much of an avenue because the perception is always that 2D animation is for children, you know, and that hasn't changed much. Like even when Ram Mohan collaborated with the Japanese, the filmmaker, I forgot his name, but they've
Yeah.
created like such a great Ramayan, right? Like it's
Hmm.
such iconic visuals and such fluid animation, anime style. And where did that go? Like it was not seen only, except when Cartoon Network came later, and then they
Doordarshan,
started
thoda sa.
Darshan also. But like, so it could have been the rise of animation, but like it was this perception that nahi, राम को हम लोग एनिमेशन में नहीं दिखा सकते हैं, वो बच्चों का चीज है एनिमेशन.
Hmm.
Or you're not, it's like so that's probably one of the reasons why it didn't go anywhere, because people always looked at it as like nahi, बच्चों के लिए कुछ नहीं बनाना है,
Hmm.
uh, and then since then it's become very much of a commercial thing. Like, see, Exorus, for example, one of the biggest animation studios in India, their prime area of work is advertising, because that's where the budgets are, that's where the market is. You know, clients will pay money for animation, but when it comes to filmmakers, there are very few filmmakers who can make films for an audience for animation, because it takes massive amounts of time, effort, like 3 to 5 years at least for making an animated film, right? So the economics of it never balanced out. It would outweigh the budget of making a feature film, and its animation. People aren't able to make sense of it because stars are so big, right? In India,
Hmm.
stars are almost like gods only. So making uh, films with multi crore films with stars and all are a bigger return. you know that's why, I mean, all Hollywood also has that funda. That's why you have like a big stars voicing characters.
Hmm. Hmm.
Other people won't watch. Why? What difference does it make if like Brad Pitt comes and voices a mouse in a in animation? It doesn't make any difference, but it's a crowd puller. तो वहां पे उधर तक गया है, यहाँ पे वहां तक पहुंचने का मौका ही नहीं मिला, बिकॉज लाइक एनिमेशन सफर्ड दैट ब्लो.
हाँ.
तो
And because of that वो थोड़ा quality भी कम हुआ because of this छोटा भीम and other things, because if you compare with anime and other things, the detailing levels are different. Is it?
I feel
Uh,
like they have very limited budgets and very stringent timelines. So they pick the easy execution kind of model, where like characters are not very dynamic, the animation is not very fluid, recurring setups, recurring environments, so that jada paint background banana nahi pade. So those kind of things help, and it's all for little kids. It's mainly slapstick kind of humor and stuff like that. There's nothing very deep, and or at least I've missed out on the things that are deep and storytelling. Uh,
hmm. Hmm.
so that's, I mean, like animation is in that state but there are still some really good animators. Like we've worked with some of them, like NID students are some Srishti School of Design. There are so many people who come out of there who are, I would say, in this environment, they are pretty much like prodigies, because they've got nothing except their thirst for knowledge and for to be able to excel by practicing. And some people are doing exceptional work, like a person who we worked with like a few years ago has now worked on the recent Love, Death and Robots.
Yeah.
So we're like, my god, mind blown. So hai talent hai, but market nahi hai. That's the situation with 2D animation.
Correct.
3D, at least there is that between the film world, the VFX world and everything, 3D is quite in demand. There's a lot of 3D being used, and now with so many of the big VFX houses like MPC, DMEG, all of them are like based here now. They have their own kind of huge studios here. Their pipelines are all coming into play. So the requirement for that kind of work is always there. But it's primed for some other industry. It's not for ours. Bahubali, of course, created an example, and now many other filmmakers are following it. To make a film that is fantasy, that is completely rooted in another universe, and like there are so many different kinds of like set pieces and characters and stuff like that. So I feel that is on the rise, of course. Like a lot of these kind of films are coming, like Brahmastra is coming, and there are like a couple of like superhero films also coming up. So that way, things are happening. But yeah, animation suffered, and it still is suffering. No one still, like the last good animated film to come out of India was Ashoka. No, was it Ashoka? No, not Ashoka.
I'm not following it, so.
Yeah.
I really like the Hanuman one that Anurag Kashyap had directed. And Ashoka, of course, was like a benchmark animated film. But I also, like from personal experience, I've noticed that filmmakers, and it's very ironic. My close friends and family love 2D animated stuff because they understand that it takes effort and they enjoy watching animated films. Which are generally your Pixar, Disney, everything from abroad, even DreamWorks. But filmmakers, when I say, okay, let's do this sequence in an 2D animation, I don't know, many people have resisted it because they feel that 3D looks classier or premium, but 2D doesn't, which is terrible as an artist to hear. But I understand where they come from. But it's not true, right? Like, because 2D and 3D both take equal amounts of effort. One looks more photorealistic, so it's sort of, and you can do some, the render quality looks very crisp, so sort of looks premium, but like even 2D animation when done right can just blow your mind, and I follow so many artists on Instagram whose work is just like, like a burst of energy every day that I see it. So that's also one of the reasons why he hasn't picked up so much. Sorry, Vijesh, continue.
Actually, it was Arjun, the Warrior Prince.
Oh yeah, Arjun. Why did I also say Ashoka?
I mean, sorry, that's the word that came to my mind. But Arjun was exceptionally made. Like, have you seen it?
No, I have not seen it.
I highly recommend it. It's actually probably the only Indian animated feature film which was made entirely in India with like a full team of Indian animators, and it looked really good, and it was actually released by Disney and everything. So it was a hallmark achievement, I feel. But it had, like, it was theatrically released here, and within 1 week it was gone from the cinemas because nobody went and watched it. Like, it was ignored, and it's really good. Like, it was actually also an Oscar contender, I think, that year. I'm not sure. The animated category.
I'll check.
But there is serious potential. There is serious, like, I think talent. But no demand.
Correct, correct.
But
I think,
I mean, I do agree with Vijesh, but I feel it's changed a bit because I remember when we went to Anne Awards, I was surprised to see at least two, three very good animation studios there. Of course, they were all making content for kids, mostly cartoon based, like cartoon type of content. But there were quite a few animation studios, and there's one major animation studio in Bangalore. So hopefully, like slowly with industry support and slowly, because I feel like we haven't cracked our Bahubali for animation yet. The day
hmm,
that happens, then it will grow. So we're just, with a lot of people making an effort to do that, we might just take it one of
In fact,
yeah, true.
Bahubali was also made in animation, but nobody cared. Really, it's there on Amazon.
these.
Oh, is it? Okay. I think I've seen it. Yeah, yeah. Well, as in like the title I've seen, not the film, but yeah, yeah. Got it. I think, matlab, if we have to give some sort of blame, I would personally, as a outside person, I would just blame Disney. Yeah. They have made the mark, but in my memory, it's Mickey Mouse and Tom and Jerry all my childhood, which is like classic animation, and I think that's where the baggage is, right? कि ये बच्चों के लिए रहेगा. Maybe I don't know. I'm just speculating.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yashoda, like to you, which sort of, according to you, is a better medium or a better way to tell a story? Is it illustration or real life motion? I mean, the ones which you guys do with VFX or yeah, just adding or superimposing certain things on a already shot film or whatever. Like, yeah,
Better medium for storytelling.
yeah.
I I'm actually very open like that. I feel like it's always the story that drives where how we need to tell it. You know, like a decoupled title sequence could have easily been shot as well. But I know I just felt if we do it in 3D, it'll be a lot more. Uh, you'll have a lot more fun in doing it, and there's this kick you get where people think that it's been shot but it's not, that's also there. So that's why when we went for, in fact, I think one of the we go through this QC for every sequence that we deliver. There's a quality check that happens at the OTT level, and one of the QCs for the title sequence had come in, and it was for this episode where there are two wine glasses kept on a table, and this bottle rolls over. That's why you see the logo, and that bottle sort of slides the glass, separating the two. And then there was this QC comment which said that we can see the camera and the crew on the wine glass, and all of us were like, "Wow, this is such a backhanded compliment because there was no camera, there were no people reflection there because it's
Wow.
clearly not been shot. So whoever saw it thought that it was shot. So but like I've also done a title sequence for the Fame game, which was entirely shot, and the reason for that was the idea is to see an artist working and see the evolution of a oil painting being formed. There's no other organic, better way to do it than to shoot it and like see a person actually do the technique, so that you get all the like how the artist holds the brush and how the paint mix happens, how the paint spreads on the canvas. There's no other way to do, no better way to do it. So we obviously built a set and then shot it live action, and then there are title sequences like Sacred Games. There's no way you can shoot it, but there is also certain segments that you had to use shot footage. It was like all the temple shots and all the Sabri Masjid shot, and there was strike that was happening with the show. All of that you had to take footage, and
Hmm.
then of course there was the mandala which you had to create, so you had to make it completely honest. So I feel like the more open it is, the better, because then what you want to say empowers you with like what medium you can use, and then you can just tell it in the best way possible.
Got it, got it. And it's mainly about sort of how broken or how disjoint the assets are, so that you can play more and take it further. So now in film, I think you have like some base layer already. Maybe you're putting stuff on it that you create. So obviously, like, creating grounds up would be more sort of agile in a way to change the narrative. Got it. Cool.
Like, if I can add to that,
Yeah.
basically that scene that she mentioned of the bottle, how it moved and it hit the glass. On set, it would have taken so many trials to get it to move that way. Like, it's not possible for it to move like that on its own, right? You need something like it moved in a circular motion and then pushed one glass away from the other. That's not going to happen on set, you know. It's not easy anyway to do something like that. You'll have to do strings and fishnets or whatever, you know, that kind of thing. But what I wanted to add was that, like, if you think of filmmaking as a blank canvas, then I think that that's like underdefined, because if you feel like that, then think about every shot that is taken as a blank canvas, you know. Like, nowadays visual effects has come to such a high level of perfection, that every frame that you shoot can be enhanced in some way or the other. And like, if you, like, for example, if you watch the behind the scenes of Mindhunter, the show by David Fincher, you would see that there are so many shots that have been stitched and positioned in such a way that you can't tell when you're watching the show. It's happening such in quick progression, but it's all so well shot and thought of. And then in post, he's thought, you know what, that building in the background, I want 6 lights on in random windows. Why? Because it leads your attention to the character who's standing in the center, you know. So after shooting, he has gone ahead and done so many changes. Like, एक पूरा building का उसने top निकाल के skyscraper बना दिया instead of the roof being there. So it extends the shot and gives more whatever information is there in the frame, whatever action is happening in the frame, it gives that more attention, uh, rather than some high contrast roof in the background that will grab your attention. So he's using that as his canvas, you know. And I feel like that's, like, a lot of filmmakers do that in India also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically
Anurag
redesign.
Basu does it a lot.
Anurag.
Anurag Basu does it a lot in his film. You can see that he's done such dramatic changes to the backgrounds. And some of them are quite obvious, but like a lot of it, a lot of background replacements, sky replacements, and all beautification.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like it's a tool now, and so it's kind of like, I feel in a way, if I'm ever going to make films, then I will feel handicapped without having that option. I need it, you know.
Because you're a designer. Because what this does is basically helps you design every frame.
Yeah.
Yes, आज location में sir वहाँ से पानी टपक रहा है, या or this building is not all enough.
Yeah.
Have the capability to design the frame where you want the audience to focus their attention on. You can do it in post as well.
Did that very successfully for Leila, actually. This we have show called Leila on Netflix.
Yes, I've seen it. It's beautifully done. Yeah.
In that, Yashoda and me were like the VFX supervisors on that show, and we did like most of the matte paintings that we did for that whole dystopian feel and everything. We went on set, we figured what they were shooting, and then we took those frames and figured what can we add to this to make it look like it's dystopia, you know. So because you won't get everything, we're actually shooting in Delhi. Like, your shoot schedule was not very, you know, series. It's not like films. You don't get that kind of time. You have to kind of shoot 9 to 10 pages a day sometimes, you know. So in that speed, you'll not be able to frame everything aesthetically or make sure that there's enough information there, or find the perfect locations that you need, you know. So a lot of it had to be enhanced in VFX. And nowadays, I feel that is the real art, to look at a film, feel that feeling, and not know that, oh shit, half of the frame was not really what it was added later in post.
बट वो भी एक मे बी लाइक कोई फिल्म मेकर का वो एक सैड स्टोरी रहेगा कि सब कुछ ग्रीन पे ही चल रहा है and then everything is added later. Yeah. And Vijesh, I wanted to ask you, which Yashoda nicely had a segue, कि वो किक मिलता है राइट रियल बनाने का, एंड स्पेशली ये सेक्रेड गेम्स का जो टाइटल सीक्वेंस है उसमें वो जो मंडला वगैरह है, इट फील्स सो रियल कि वो वैसा कहीं पे रहेगा और आप शूट करके आए हो, इतना वो रियलिस्टिक है राइट, विद शैडोज, विद शाइन, विद द टेक्सचर. तो ये क्या किक क्या है, लाइक व्हाट इज दिस सॉर्ट ऑफ ड्राइव टू मेक लाइक स्पेशल इफेक्ट्स लुक रियल? क्योंकि है ना, स्पेशल इफेक्ट्स ही कर रहे हो ना, तो व्हाई नॉट? आई मीन इवन यू सी इन इंस्टाग्राम फिल्टर्स एंड एवरीथिंग, you feel you want to make it almost real. Like any, from a like a maker standpoint, क्या kick है ये?
I think it's born from the lack of resources. At least for me and Yashoda and people like us, we've all done our own indie short films and music videos and everything, where we don't have like the sky is not the limit wala projects. We had to kind of figure ways in which we could make things look real that were not. And from then that little okay, I did it.
नहीं, but sorry, ये real ही क्यों दिखाना है? Like मतलब the main premise itself is it's generated, right?
Yeah.
तो एक कुछ inherent human को वो need होती है कि एक animator को need होती है कि real जाए? I mean टॉय स्टोरी का बंदा तो दिखता है लाइक नकली है राइट, बट जैसे फैंटेसी वर्ल्ड में आ रहे हैं, वी आर मेकिंग मच एंड मच लाइक मोर एंड मोर रियल पीपल, ऑलमोस्ट CGI यू कांट डिफरेंशिएट इन सर्टन फिल्म्स. तो ये कहाँ पे, लाइक वेयर इज दिस कमिंग फ्रॉम, इफ यू गाइस हैव रिफ्लेक्टेड ऑन इट?
So photorealism is the only way to sell something to an audience without distracting them. Like हम लोग बहुत ज़्यादा ट्रेंड है चीज़ों को कैमरा के लेंस के थ्रू देखने का, कि हमें कुछ भी अगर ऊपर नीचे, एनीथिंग इज अ लिटिल ऑफ, we'll not be able to pinpoint it as layman, but we'll know that it's something was off, अच्छा नहीं है. Or there's this quote like, the VFX was grabbing for attention, but it's mainly because something didn't look photoreal, and photorealism is the thing that actually sells all these fantasy films. All of Marvel films, audience go crazy because like Iron Man shooting that whatever lasers and guns and pellets out of his suit, and his suit looks so like real. You believe him, you watch it and you are like, I'm gonna follow this guy. And it's most of the time the actor is not even wearing anything, he's just got like markers on him. But it's something that feels right from first look, that it doesn't make you think, it makes your brain sort of accept what it's seeing is the magic. And that's a very human thing to do. And but achieving that is a huge struggle. There are like, for one shot in an Iron Man would take months to arrive at. There are like so many minute, finer details that an artist is working on day in and day out. Hundreds of artists like that movie, and they put in all of that effort, so much time. That is what the kick is, कि हम लोग ने, I've put so many hours not moving from my machine, sometimes giving up on my social life, private life, everything, and just working on a shot. When you see it in the theater, when you see it anywhere, even on your laptop, you see it and you see an audience who cannot tell the difference. You feel like you've attained some sort of a peak as an artist, and that is what makes you that, wow, I've done something.
There's also the fandom factor. Now, like for example, people in American societies, for example, they've been Marvel comic fans for like decades now, and then finally, when they're seeing a convincing Iron Man on screen, they would be so happy. The first Iron Man film, when it came out, when the suit started assembling itself, and when he first shot out those lasers from his hand, people might have flipped out. I can imagine, I mean, imagine if some of our superheroes, like
unfortunately we didn't have, also we had Shaktiman, but yeah.
Shaktiman, I would say Shaktiman को remake करना चाहिए in this day and age with the special effects, visual effects that we have to do.
Aren't we doing it? aren't we doing it with Ranveer Singh? That's the last thing I heard about it.
वो रूमर है ना, I don't know.
I don't
But
know.
अगर करेंगे तो बहुत बड़ा हिट होगा.
Yeah, another thing is like I noticed that even in terms of paintings, like I recently we'd gone to Met. I remember we were on a tour to a film festival tour in the US, and at Met I was just going through all the paintings from back in like 1600s to like, and there was clearly an evolution in adding more realism to the painting. You know, when it happened with paintings back then with cinema, of course, it then translated and got involved in the sense like because we are also the art. That's why we are all called artists because we sort of bring in that into every frame that we work on. You know? So
Got
from
it. Got it.
solid blocking to full lighting and photorealism that you can like you look at the painting and you see details of the cloth on touching the skin, the subsurface on the skin, which is when the light is from behind and it's scattered, and you see the red cheeks and the red hair. All of those details on a painting evolved over hundreds of years. So that's how I think
Yeah.
it get into cinema and now into
ये मे बी लाइक कभी अलग से बात करेंगे कि ये क्योंकि ये बहुत ज़्यादा फिलोसॉफिकल हो गया बिकॉज यू कनेक्टेड नाइसली कि वो डेविड के ज़माने से स्टैचू भी लाइक रियलिस्टिक बना रहे हैं तो कुछ तो रहेगा मे बी विल सॉर्ट ऑफ मूव ऑन तो अनिरुद्ध मेहता हैज़ बीन अ गेस्ट ऑन ऑडियो ज्ञान एंड वी स्पोक अबाउट द सीक्रेट गेम्स टाइटल सीक्वेंस he gave you that illustrator file and then you guys added the magic to it. तो मुझे बहुत शॉर्ट में जस्ट जानना था कि एंड यू कैन टेक एग्जाम्पल ऑफ से रमन राघव और गुस्ताख फॉर दैट मैटर कि टिपिकली क्या 2 3 5 10 15 स्टेजेस होते हैं जिसमें कि ये टिपिकली बनता है वेरी ब्रॉड बकेट्स जस्ट फॉर लेमैन अगेन
In stages of production, you mean like for
या लाइक हाँ जनरली वीएफएक्स के लिए मे बी लाइक 3 स्टेजेस रहते हैं जैसे यशोदा ने कहा कि क्यूए भी होता है तो उतना थोड़ा सा आइडिया
Yeah, I mean, see, it's all like nowadays. So whatever we do, we first go with like a concept pitch because at the end of the day, we are making films for other filmmakers, right? So they are the client, and then we have to kind of sell them concepts. So we go with concept decks, and if
But
they
this
like,
concept is based on a brief, or is it
uh,
sometimes it's open-ended, sometimes it like very like इसी में fit करना है, right?
yeah. So like we usually request to watch the film or the series. Okay, if the series or film is not shot yet, then we request to read the screenplay. Because then what happens is you have an idea of the story, and at the end of it, we are doing a 30 second, 45 second, 1 minute at max, But it's all in service of that one title that's coming in the end, right? So that's why that concept has to really land. So we need to know all these things. So that's the first step. Like we definitely read or watch. Then we go with concept decks, and then they kind of narrow down on one concept, and then we start doing explorations. Like we start spitballing, doing thumbnails with our. We have a storyboard artist who we've been working with for the longest time ever. We work with him mostly. We get thumbnails done to get a story progression in place. Yashoda sits and cracks like Yashoda is directing now mostly. So she's, I'm going to say Yashoda comes up with most of the stories for like the concept extends to a story next, right? So she comes up with a story, what's happening in the sequence, what are the flow of visuals. Then thumbnails are made for that. And then if thumbnails work, then they're fleshed out more. And then we send the storyboard back to the client and we guide them through it and tell them this is what we think is happening. This is the kind of music that we think would work with it. This is the kind of mood. These are the kind of reference visuals. These are other title sequences that have the kind of render quality or animation or, it's like we kind of give them as many references as possible to what we're trying to build because most filmmakers are nervous getting into this because for them they have a script and then they either before the script I don't know but from the script to what is there on their edit they have like broken it down endlessly. Like they have one scene, one character, then okay, that character, there's like several departments working on that character. So everything is on page for them. But this is a concept film about their film, right? So it's hard for them to imagine, hard for them to see storyboards and understand. Sometimes then we move into animatics where we show like movements, camera work, behavior, and then like some base renders to show, okay, this is probably what like the final frame might look like. And then they start going like, ah, okay, now I see what you mean, you know. And then we finally start like doing more keyframe renders for them to see. And then finally we do sequence renders, you know. So all of those base renders we do it at low quality, you know, so that they see uh, the color, the contrast, you know, those kind of things, lighting, everything. And then the final step is doing your like final render, and that takes time to build the shots, to do the final animation and everything, and then do the final render.
एंड देन इट मतलब आपका जो एक यूट्यूब वीडियो था उसमें मैं देख रहा था कि वो बैक एंड फोर्थ होना इज़ वेरी डेंजरस. तो उसके बारे में लाइक व्हाई इज इट सॉर्ट ऑफ I understand like you might have to redo many, you're working with many layers at a time and like moving them around. I've been using Photoshop for many years, so I know how Photoshop is notorious also. I can imagine. But say suppose everything is ready and then put in, then the last mile फिर एडिटर ही करता है कि आपका डिलीवरेबल क्या रहता है टिपिकली? इज इट लाइक अ MP4 और what is it like?
Oh, that's a whole different thing. So basically now, because we are doing 4K HDR, you know, ACES content, we have to deliver EXRs, you know. So EXR is like pretty high res. Like I think it's some 180, 200 MB per image or something like that. So it has many layers also, huh?
An image sequence, basically.
Yeah, it's an image sequence basically. Yeah, you have to give them an EXR image sequence, or it like certain people are okay with TIFF image sequences, but yeah, we don't. MP4 is only for approval. Once it's approved, then we put it to them as an EXR sequence, because on that big timeline, which is like your DI timeline, which has your full resolution HDR footage, that's EXRs only go there, you know. So that's where that's how it's delivered. And also that question that you asked is interesting, but basically your edit is set before we start animation, you know. It happens in this animatic stage basically, where you take all the storyboards and then you mark your timings, and you know, by then you'll get the music also from the filmmaker. So then you'll kind of map it to the music and make an edit, and that edit is your bible for the rest of your full production period. Every shot is no matter which artist is working on it, how many artists are working on it, it all comes back to the same timeline, you know. So one master timeline will always be there, which has the edit as a base and the high res visuals on top, which is matched once it comes back from the artists. Yeah.
Maybe
So as deliverables, we deliver from the idea till the final film. We do everything, and then we give it. To answer your question,
like for this decoupled title sequence, we actually went in and sat with the colorist and graded it and everything. It was fun. Even for the one that she shot,
we
the same game.
Yeah, we generally do. So DI coloring, we generally work with the studio called the Bridge Postwork. Sidmir or Mahab Gupta, they're both like amazing colorists. And generally for DI, we work with either Sid Mir or Mahab Gupta from the Bridge Postwork. Like the best, one of the best. They're very close friends, and it's very easy to work with them. But everything else in the pipeline, from the idea, story to your animatic, storyboard animatic, and then your artwork, animation, and final, we manage within the studio.
Got it. Cool. And यशोदा, आपके लिए एक सवाल था. आप लाइक वो जो sort of चीज़ बोल रही थी उसी को sort of डबल क्लिक करना था. Is that um, what I have seen at least, that when you're making say title sequence, the thing is pretty repetitive, right? मतलब film hero आ रहा है, hero का नाम, heroine का नाम, and like it's just going on and on and on, right? So how do you sort of balance that कि एनिमेशन ओवर इंडेक्स भी नहीं हो रहा है, अगर पीछे स्टोरी चल रही है तो वो स्टोरी भी इम्पोर्टेंट है, बट कास्ट का नाम भी इम्पोर्टेंट है, तो ये बैलेंस टिपिकली कैसे, इज देयर एनी थंब रूल, इज देयर एनी लर्निंग्स कि ये करेंगे तो इट्स सेफर, इट्स बेटर, especially in the title sequence thing?
Yeah, so that's a tricky one because when we do title sequence for OTT, they have a set format that they'll only put creators, and if there are big stars in the show, then 3 or 4 names. That makes, and also the duration of the title sequence is shrinking by the day. Like I don't get to do long title sequences anymore. Like 10 second, 20 second में बोल दो खत्म करो. So then you have the flexibility because like the names are less. You can sort of balance your frames accordingly. But film में वो करना थोड़ा मुश्किल है because फिल्मों में there are a lot of people working and many team members' names come into the opening credits. You know? So that's where like we know so for a future like a theatrical film or even OTT film, we just make sure that we sort of have this in the back of our mind that there's going to be a lot of names. So let's just keep it like design the frames in a manner where we have enough breathing space everywhere. Like there's enough negative space within all of our frames so that even if there are like 5-6 names on one slide, we are able to balance it. We do insist on getting the names beforehand. Like at least department ka naam to de do. कौन से department names will come into the sequence. But it works 60% of the time, 40% of the time it's like a last minute. Oh, we've added everything, but let's just put one person's name for sequence. We forgot, and then that happens, you know. But OTTs it's a lot more easier because there is not much elaborate title sequence name credits that go. Most of credits appear on film.
Correct. Yeah.
Also, the thing is that OTTs, the title sequences are a lot more conceptual for some reason.
Like वो तो टेम्पलेट बना रहे. इनफैक्ट मेरा नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन उसी के ऊपर था कि ये OTT टाइटल सीक्वेंस का जो पूरा जो शोले के ज़माने से टाइटल सीक्वेंस था जहाँ पे मूवी का लाइक इज ऑल्सो अनफोल्डिंग एज द टाइटल सीक्वेंस इज हैपनिंग, वो सब अभी चला जा रहा है या डायरेक्ट वो स्किप इंट्रो बटन पे आ रहा है? तो हाउ इज द सॉर्ट ऑफ एनिमेटर और द टाइटल सीक्वेंस डिजाइनर रिस्पॉन्डिंग टू इट कि क्या लाइक are you feeling bad, are you feeling good, क्या चल रहा है, like any thoughts there?
I'm clearly, by now you must know that I'm very optimistic in life as a person. You know, I just feel everything is like a challenge, and the smaller the duration, even more challenging it becomes to say something that's unique. And that's where unique ideas crop up, like for Decoupled and even for we had different mandalas every episode. We had different title sequence only for every episode for Decoupled. Because the duration was less. So you come up with these ideas so that you make the audience watch the title sequence. In fact, Netflix for Decoupled was like, okay, I'll give you the duration till which you can say anything and no one will skip it. And that was under 20 seconds. So that was the information that came to us, and we challenged ourselves and we came up with something that worked, you know. So it's good. And then there are of course like elaborate movie sequence where you get 2-3 minutes because you need that amount of time to say what you have to say. You sort of set it up for the audience, you know. So it's about finding pleasures where you can, in the sense like either itna hi karne milega, let's do it this way. And because the duration has become lesser, I feel I'm getting to do more title sequence than before, because I have the bandwidth to do at least 2-3 together at a point, and all of them are very different, and it's fun. So I have a very like And skip intro is fine. If someone's skipping intro my sequence, it means that the show is really interesting. The audience is watching it. That means there are chances of it becoming popular. So if it's popular, then people will go. Like Sacred Games was popular, and I think that helped the audience go and then Google who did it, how was it made, and watch the title sequence again. So it's a mutually beneficial ecosystem. So I am totally up for whatever the audience wants.
नहीं नहीं ये आपके अंदर का रियल आर्टिस्ट बोल रहा है इसलिए अच्छा लग रहा है बिकॉज वो जोन में मतलब इवन वी आर इन दिस UI UX वर्ल्ड ना तो एक पॉइंट के बाद सारी वेबसाइट सेम दिख रही हैं क्योंकि वो पैटर्न बन गया है वो टेम्पलेट्स बन गए हैं सो अ रियल आर्टिस्ट लाइक हैव टू लाइक पुश द बाउंड्रीज टू मेक समथिंग डिफरेंट एंड देन होपफुली इट you mirror or you sort of bridge the gap between usability and having good UI as well.
Despite all that, if the usability, like more people are using it without difficulties, you feel good, right? Like, okay, एक template से आया, but like ultimately for consumers, it's been beneficial.
नहीं बट वो सब फ्लैट हो रहा है ना वो फिर वो फ्लैट हो रहा है सब कुछ लाइक
I would still love to see very different looking UIs for sure.
Yeah. In fact, मुझे याद है I did one interview with a writer and he said I have been writing for many years but आजकल वो जो रहता है ना top 10 places to go without visa, top 10 sort of places to तो ये सब मशीन ही लिख रहे हैं ये सब आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस से लिखे जा रहे हैं तो मैं क्या करूँगा राइट तो मैं ये करूँगा कि उसमें न्यूएंसेस ढूंढूंगा जहाँ पे मैं आई ट्रैवल आई लाइक फाइंड आउट अ स्मॉल लिटिल डिटेल ऑफ दैट ट्राइब एंड देन ब्रिंग इट बैक दैट मशीन लर्निंग एल्गोरिदम विल नेवर बी एबल टू डू इट तो है मतलब आप जेन्युइनली बहुत अच्छे आर्टिस्ट हो इसलिए बोल रहे हो पॉजिटिव दिख रहा है अदरवाइज लाइक इट्स अ स्लाइटली सैड सीन कि सब फ्लैट होते जा रहा है राइट देयर इज yeah you want to add anything Vijesh to this OTT wala skip intro
I've always been a skip intro person. Like if I watch a show and if I'm interested in it and if the intro comes, I skip it. I never felt like, अरे मेरा intro skip हो रहा है. Yeah, it's nothing. It doesn't matter. You just need to see that intro once because it's the brand of the show. उसके बाद अभी बार बार देखने का क्या है अगर अच्छा लगा तो देखो नहीं तो skip करो. You know, so I've always been in that mindset. Like I've never felt like skip intro is bad, but about the duration reducing and it impacting our line of work, that had a serious thought once, you know. And Yashoda and me realized that agar duration कम हो रहा है, मतलब we can do multiple sequences. So why worry about it? 5 उठाओ जो 2 साथ में होता था अभी 5 साथ में हो सकता है
सही है
वैसे भी like there are so many OTTs so many networks you know
so many
shows being made so the market is full of possibilities even I started becoming an optimist after Yashoda brought it in
yeah cool I think I'll conclude with sort of one last question ki like I've been following Instagram handle and आप काफ़ी ट्रिप करते रहते हो विजेश मतलब एटलीस्ट मैं आपको फॉलो कर रहा हूँ नज़दीक से लाइक व्हाट इज़ द फ्यूचर लाइक हाउ लाइक आप कौन से जोन में जा रहे हो व्हाट आर यू एक्सप्लोरिंग एंड both of you like what do you think is the future of visual effects and sort of the CGI world in India especially you can take any spectrum right from like I've seen especially you tripping on some filters तो वो end से अनुराग कश्यप का cutting edge movie तक anything that comes to your mind
so I feel like I don't know if you've seen the more recent ones the posts that I've been doing but I've been using Midjourney
okay
have you heard of Midjourney
no
So Midjourney is an AI prompt software in which you just write a prompt and it will generate a visual for you.
Wow.
So I've written rainy Kolaba, beautiful golden vibes and it will create an image that looks like that. Something like that, you know. And it looks so surreal. It looks like a painting, you know. And like I'm very much fascinated by how you can just put in some keywords and it's generating visuals, and that's like even DALI is there, which is another
Yeah.
AI prompting, this thing device. What do you call? I think it's an algorithm or it's whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's so accurate. Like I wrote a panda wearing Ray-Bans in the style of one certain artist, and then it made it so well. I was shocked. I'm like, this is unbelievable, unbelievable. Like, I don't know how it has reached this state,
Hmm.
where AI is generating visuals for you. So, like, I think that technology is such a huge part now of all the work we're doing. Like, until 2 years ago, if you wanted to see like a photorealistic render, you have to wait for several hours, right? Like, we'll have to sit, and basically we used to use Octane a lot with Cinema 4D. Octane is a render engine.
Hmm.
So the early work that we've done has a lot of we did this music video called Gustak.
Yeah.
It's for a
Gustav.
song called Gustak. I don't know if you've seen that. It
Yeah,
has,
I've seen. Beautiful movie.
so there are a couple of scenes in that are fully CG. Now, for each frame, it used to take around 10 minutes to
Baap re.
render one frame. Okay.
And
And
it's a 15 or a 17-minute long, right? It's quite
no,
long.
no, I think it's 5 or 6 minutes
Oh,
only.
is it? Okay, okay. Ha, ha,
Yeah.
ha. Hmm.
But the like, just imagine that one frame is taking so long, and now we have Unreal Engine with near photorealism, and it's real time. Like, in Octane, for the render viewport to create a visual, it used to take 5 to 10 minutes, and now, अरे यार, I feel like that angle was wrong. मेरे को उसका गर्दन ऐसा करने का, ऐसा था, ऐसा करने का,
Hmm.
उसके लिए अभी 10 और मिनट रुको, you know but रियल टाइम में हो जाता है, अभी ऐसा हो गया, like I'm moving my head now, it's moving. You want to change the camera, you want to change the material texture on something, it's all happening real time feedback, and it's like, it's mind blowing how now, in just a matter of 3 4 years, this
Hmm.
technology has come to this state that I can use Unreal Engine to create a film, like, that's what was used by Mandalorian, uh, the whole virtual production setup, right, for Mandalorian. So Mandalorian, the Disney Plus show,
Hmm.
the entire show, like at least 80% of it was shot on these stages, which have complete, like, there are walls of OLED, of LED screens on top, on sides, and they projected the entire environments, which were made entirely in CG.
Wow. Hmm. Hmm,
And
hmm.
obviously, it is cutting edge, and it was the talk of the town. And like, now, most of the world is moving towards virtual production because, it's so much more contained.
Yeah.
They have, like, Mandalorian, the show has some crazy environments, that were entirely CG, and so, I mean, like, the all of this is happening real time. They're shooting with real time VFX happening in the background, which was obviously planned in pre-production, but they're shooting a character on a screen, a character who's fully metal, and all the reflections of the environment are coming on him in real time, and they're shooting it. It's just like
Next level stuff.
unbelievable. So I think that's where we're headed now. Like, a lot of research is happening right now, even in India, on setting up virtual production environments, and we ourselves are working on a sequence for an upcoming film, which is entirely in Unreal Engine, and it's photorealistic to an extent where you can't distinguish it from a CG software like Maya or Cinema 4D.
Hmm.
You can't tell the difference anymore because you've got like pixel mega scans and like those kind of like high res textures available. Like, the entire world is on your computer screen, so
Yeah.
that's where we are headed. I feel like it's all becoming much faster, much more intuitive, much more real time.
And
That's
realistic.
and realistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
But besides realism, I feel like what Adobe has cracked with animation where you can track your motion to do 2D animation.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
so
yeah,
it's just like I feel like there is so much technological advancement that's been happening for
yeah.
filmmakers, animators, uh, 3D filmmakers, like just creating, there's just so much that is being developed. I think that's a good thing because, like, even for machines, like we used to own these gaming PCs, which we used to run for hours to get one render out. Now I'm on a laptop and I'm working on shots on my laptop and I've delivered sequences on my laptop. And it's
Yeah, yeah.
for me, sometimes it's mind blowing that I am doing high end film and OTT production on something that's foldable and easily, you
You can
know,
Yeah.
put it in your bag and
I
just
can take it on my bag and travel the world and my work is still. I think as gadgets and devices and all of these things are evolving, software companies are like working hard, render engines are working hard to bring this technology. I think it will help filmmakers in the long run and will create a lot of content creators to वैसे भी अभी आ गए हैं. But then, like, even people who want to create fantastical or surreal content, that's gonna happen much faster, much more. I see TikTok reels and IG reels where people like do some flipping of one character and the character flies with 20 feet away, and then they are so proud to show how they did it. They got one guy in green suit. They'll show you the behind the scenes. This is how I did it. And they'll show the breakdown. So it's everybody is learning. And it's easily accessible, which is great. That's very
Mm.
actually, until a couple of years ago, the reels that used to be more popular used to be the ones with the effects. But now the ones that are more popular and getting more clicks and shares and saves are the ones where they do the breakdowns of what they did.
Mm. Mm.
Like
Mm.
even like Ari, what's his name?
for
All of them are showing their breakdowns now. Before they used to just do these things and we would not know what they did. But now the breakdowns are because everybody wants to learn and everybody wants to do this in their own time. Because
Mm.
all you need now is a phone.
Yeah,
That's
the
simple.
phone really. Like, and
Mm.
Instagram, Snapchat filters can change your age, the way you look,
Yeah,
even like in the blink of an eye. That's how. Like at one point, I remember when I was studying animation and visual effects, face tracking was like, oh my god, somebody face tracked and put something. It was like magic, and now I can just open up my camera and have another face.
yeah.
That's mind blowing for me.
In
Wow.
fact, like last year or the year before last, the technical Emmy went to Adobe for this show called Our Cartoon President, which was entirely animated using facial tracking on Adobe Animate.
Wow.
The whole
Hmm.
show, it was just people doing this,
Amazing.
and facial tracking, say
Yeah,
facial
yeah.
animation हो रहा है. And most of it's all like because it's presidential and it's political. Most of it is just people sitting around talking heads.
Hmm.
And it's so easy to animate that if you have facial tracking and like they figured an easy rig for it. So convincing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
rigging like Mixamo is Adobe's another 3D animation portal where you can just upload a model and get poses. And that's something that we've been
Yeah.
using for a while in most of our
Not just
projects.
poses, man. Like even animation, like there's so much, like over 500 hours of motion capture data available for free on
Oh.
Mixum.
Yeah,
Oh.
All you
Okay.
need is an Adobe ID, right?
Hmm.
Then you can access all of that, and then you don't need an animator for all those things. And there are all these like dance moves, fight moves, standing, sitting, like sleeping, you know, all
Hmm.
those things are available. Breathing, just sitting and breathing. All of
Hmm.
that is there. And earlier you would need like a full-time animator for doing even those basic things. But
Yeah.
now this is like it's technology is making everything more accessible,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it's
but the
encouraging people to people, and these days youngsters are not thinking of it as, like I said, that divide is gone. It's not animation, design, everything is everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all art now. You find
Very.
like some really good designers who are sitting and like this marvelous designer. which basically helps you create cloth simulations. So there are so many people who just do these catwalks of clothes they've designed.
This is a new world altogether.
Yeah, it's crazy, man, and it's so accessible and so like it's amazing. I feel like
And many people are aware of it. A friend of mine is a jewelry designer, and she pinged me and she knew, should I, like, I want to sell my product, but should I do it in animation or should I shoot it? You know, she knows this and she's just into jewelry design, you know, but she knows that actual you can make content using different formats and what will be the difference, where will it look better. I mean, the questions are more informed, you can clearly tell. You know? So the answers also like will help you. It was easier for me to guide her. Okay, you do this if you want this look, do that, you want that look. Otherwise, earlier तो cartoon बनाते हो ना वैसा होता था. You know, now it's within like 7 years that changed a lot.
Amazing. I'm just like blown away with the amount of like, because even I keep consuming and it's so much. Yeah, all these things which you said has like opened a new sort of dimension to explore also. क्योंकि मुझे याद है मैं college में था, which was almost like 15 years ago maybe. I had done this 3D Studio Max का course to learn animation. I was interested, but मैं एक साइकिल 3D Studio Max में बनाना चालू किया और साइकिल का जो एक टायर था उसके स्पोक्स में ही मेरा मशीन टूट गया. तो मैंने तब से एनिमेशन ही छोड़ दिया. मतलब ये नहीं होगा. I wanted to make realistic spokes, by the way.
that's why it happened.
I quit animation because I learned all the basics. The minute I got into Maya and I had to do all the rigging on my own and I had to do that walk cycle, I was like, ये नहीं होगा. And now when I see Mr. the character can walk and do a high kick at the same time and land. I just feel like,
Yeah.
But you know what? I feel like, you know, what has happened now is that if you actually really want to do something, within 6 weeks or like 3 months, you will be able to master it because there are so many videos available. All of these softwares are also so cheap and like I said, Marvelous Designer or Unreal Engine or anything. Tutorials are available left, right, and center, man. Like it's so accessible now. Like so many kids, like parents who are friends of mine who get their kids to call me and ask me, कौन सा academy में भेजूँ मैं, मेरा बेटे को VFX करना है. तो बोला academy में मत भेज. Because in our industry, portfolio trumps everything else. It doesn't matter which university you went to and what credentials you have. If you have a kick-ass portfolio, even if you don't have any, like if you're a high school dropout also, if your portfolio is good, you'll get in, right?
Correct.
So I told them the online tutorial देखो ये website है, वहाँ पे you can do courses also. क्यों जाना है कहीं abroad? पैसा क्यों खर्च करना है? इधर ही रहो.
Yes, yeah, totally. In fact, अगले मंथ में राम मोहन का बर्थडे भी है, तो इंडिया में ही रहो और इंडिया में क्या कर सकते हैं इसके ऊपर आई एम मेकिंग अ प्लान. लेट्स सी हाउ इट मटेरियलाइजेस. But I think, this is a good note to end. Thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for sharing so many interesting things about generally VFX and motion design. Yeah, I'm now filled with more questions. Let's see how it went. Cool. Thanks, Yashoda, and thanks, Vijesh, once again.
You're welcome, yaar.
Thanks for having us, man.
Cool. And that's it from today's Gyan session. For show notes and more Gyan, visit audiogyan.com. And if you wish to connect with me, I am at AudioGyan Moments on Instagram. Until then, take care.
Hello! It's been a great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On This Round is on Me, Gauri is joined by Shweta Nanda. They talk about the financial independence and how it is to be a woman entrepreneur. On Anish Thing, Anish welcomes ultra-marathon runner Shivani Gharat. Shivani shares her journey of how she ran her first marathon, the mindset of a runner, and what it actually takes to run a full marathon. On Cock and Bull, Cyrus, Naveen, Akash and Shreyas talk about the Korean band BTS serving in the military and its repercussions. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita discuss Wing Greens and their latest acquisitions and about the Indian sexual wellness market. And on Shunya One, Sheila Datya is joined by Dinika Bhatia, CEO and founder of Nutty Gritties. They talk about coming from a business family and Dinika's journey in creating healthy and guilt-free snacking. Once again, don't forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcast.com. We have some exciting new merch out there for you. Also, do follow us on social media. We are IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And do remember to spread the word about these shows and any other shows you might be listening to. Appreciate them, rate them, and review them wherever you are listening to them. You can also check out all our other shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week. Volvo XC40 Recharge, Bumble, Heads Up for Tails, Kotak Privy League Program, and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thanks guys, without you this would not be possible.
Do you often find yourself surrounded by conversations about Web3, blockchain, NFTs, DAOs? What are these terms and how do they affect our future on the internet? So many questions, but don't worry, we've got answers to all your questions. Hi, I'm Eklavya Bhattacharya, and on our show Future Proofing, we try to decode the impact of these future technologies on various industries with experts and tech enthusiasts. Tune into new episodes coming out every Thursday on the IVM Podcast app and the website, or wherever you get your podcasts from.